Hi, everybody. It looks like we're live, and I am waiting for my friend Beth to come back. And here
She's
she
back.
is. It's back. I was just setting it up to see how it worked, and it's working, and there are people watching, and it's so
Awesome.
fun. So you guys who are watching, and even if Beth, if you and I are just having a conversation, it's
Yep.
about us. In this Get Real page that I've created, it's so fun to watch this thing grow. And I wanted to have what I'm calling the red chair dialogue. And this just happened because on Monday, I had a friend who wanted to get together with me for coffee, and the coffee shops weren't open. And so he said, "Well, what if I just come to your driveway?" And I went, "Well, okay."
Nice.
And I have two folding red chairs, like camp chairs. And I put the two red chairs in the driveway, and we had a super great conversation. And it occurred to me that the red chair driveway dialogue could be a really cool, random, real conversation.
That's so great. I love it.
So you and I are having the very first
Yes.
red chair without a red chair, without a driveway, red chair
Yeah.
virtual dialogue. So
So great.
Beth is my friend from Austin, Texas.
Hmm.
And I am so excited to have you join me on our very first conversation.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. We have such great talks,
I
and
know.
we connect on so many levels. It's fun to just kind of see what happens when we do it out loud.
Right. I
Out
know. And are you
loud.
drinking wine?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you drinking wine?
No, everybody thinks that. These are my water glasses, and everybody thinks it's wine. And I had somebody this morning. I was on a client call, and she's like, "Oh, girl, you go." I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's 9 a.m. This is water."
I'm drinking my sparkling ice. This is what I like to drink. But it's night. We could be.
That's right. That's right.
So Beth, tell us a little bit about you. I want people to know who you are, and
Okay.
whoever's out there. We've got about 8 people watching, and if you guys are watching and you want to put any messages in the chat or anything you want to ask about, feel free to join in the conversation. Who are you, Beth? Tell us about you.
So before I do that, I had to have a technical question.
Okay.
How are you following this? Do you have the Facebook open on another screen, and you're kind of following the? Okay, I was just curious because I'm doing these on another venture in another group, and I hadn't figured out how to.
I'm making it up. So we're there's a delay, there's a lag. So I'm not watching you live because it's about, 10-second lag, but I can see that 7 people are watching, and I can see that we've got a couple likes and hearts, and this is cool. So people are watching.
Give us the hearts.
Give us the hearts. We love it. Polly and Lori and Paul are here. So this is fun.
Very good.
So tell us about you.
So me, Beth, my name is Beth Alford, and I am from the great state of Texas.
Texas.
Born and raised. Yep. Lived here my whole life for the most part.
Your whole life?
My whole life.
Got the little Texas flag.
I definitely do. So gosh, I'm not a spring chicken. I have had a big old life.
For heaven's sake,
right?
We're the same age, so stop it.
It's so funny, but so I'm the mom of 4 grown children and a parcel of grandkids, and they're all over the world. And I up and moved. Spent most of the most of my adult life in Houston, raising kids and doing a lot of different things, and decided a few years ago I was ready to do something different since they all moved away. So I moved to Austin, which is such a great city. If those of you who don't know Austin, it's a really great little place to be, and started up a new business and decided to leverage all my years of doing other things. And honestly, it's just been so great because anybody who's in business knows the growth and the journey is all about continuing to run into your own stuff all the time. And I've always been a bit, I love to grow. I love to change. And so I wasn't prepared for that. But now that I get that's the journey, I'm really trying to embrace that because it's true. It's always about the healing, the ceilings I'm hitting, confronting my stuff, confronting my own self, confronting things I thought I dealt with. Yeah. So my business is marketing, web dev marketing. I run a small little agency here with a virtual team that are also all around the world. But honestly, that's like the charade to get in people's lives. So that's my gigs. Yeah,
Business is just great to get into people's lives.
Yeah, it's true, you know.
So there's more to you,
yeah.
I know. And those of you who are watching right now, I'm so excited that you guys are watching, because these are really good friends of mine, the people I'm seeing that are watching. And I would love it if you guys would participate in this too, because you who I'm seeing are here. You guys know me, you just don't know Beth. So trust me when I tell you that Beth and I are on a similar path and journey about, I'm going to call it depth. I used to call it breadth, but it's not breadth, it's depth. I'm more interested in going deep than going wide. And so a lot of the things that Beth and I have talked about since the time we've known each other for a couple of years, I don't know, lifetimes, I don't know. We talk about spirituality a lot. I think I started the journey that I call spirituality now, probably through a religion path. And I really struggled my whole life with religion, which I'm calling it now, which was very narrow the way I was raised. And now everything's just opening up in such an amazing way because I've taken God out of the box I put him in. And for me, that's impacting every single part of my life. And I don't want to speak for you, Beth, but I know you have a similar journey. And do you mind just telling us about your
I'd love to. First, can y'all hear that thunder? I put on my earbuds in because it is really storming here, which is so great. But
I love storms. I love thunder. I don't hear it.
So let me tell you just a quick story about, I don't know that I've ever told you this, but so we're a part of the networking group. That's how we met. But I knew I wanted to get to know you before you even knew who I was.
Really?
I guess it was probably 3 years ago. And you were speaking at a retreat, at a leadership event, and you were speaking on Fierce Conversations, which is one of my top 3 all-time leadership faves. I read it years ago and just knew and I was like, oh my gosh. At first, I'd never known anyone who loved that book. And then to hear you teach on it, it was like, oh my gosh. And then, so that was kind of cool. I don't know if I've ever told you that. And I just, when you hear things and hear people convey stuff that's also your heart, it's nice to have that connection. But so my long story, I raised Southern Baptist.
I'm Missouri Synod. I think maybe Southern Baptist wins, maybe a little bit.
They win. They totally win.
For like restrictive.
Oh yeah. So
was that thunder?
Yeah, it's really storming. I mean, it's going. I'm hoping that the electricity doesn't go out, but we'll see.
God will strike us down.
I'm like started talking about my past, and he's like, "You go, girl. You tell it like it is." So I never remember a time when I didn't have faith. It's just like I just have certain things that I believe to be true, and I can't explain why, right? So I've always had that. And so but then in my family of origin, there were a couple of pastors and things like that. So we were deep into that, like very deep into it. And I was as well, and had many experiences that I thought were wonderful. And then just, grew up and graduated from high school, got married at the age of 20 and dove even deeper, walked away from the Baptist thing. I knew that there was something different and went into more non-traditional types of, but very evangelical churches, and spent 20 years there. Actually really, so you see my bookshelf, I love books.
I see that.
2.5 of those shelves are theology books. Wow. And I just, it was my life for a very long time, studying, and we got heavily involved in planting churches.
Wow.
Had kids along the way, and was just,
oh my God. Holy cow, you are, that thunder's crazy.
It's really coming down. That's so great. Awesome. But I just always from a young age searching trying to connect with always believing in purpose and all those things, even if I didn't know how to articulate it. And so in the crowd I was in, when you felt that, whatever that is, to go deep.
I lost you. Did we lose you? Oh. Can you guys hear me? I can't hear Beth. I don't know if she got struck by lightning or what happened. But if you can hear me, would you give me some indication that you can hear me? Because I see that we have some people out there. Kelly, I know you're here. Well, it looks like you're here. And you, I think, would maybe resonate with this conversation. So I see that you're liking it. That's good. You hear me. Okay. So I'm talking by myself for a second because I lost Beth. So can you hear Beth? No, you can't hear Beth. So Kara, Kelly, Marta, Lori, Marcia, Jessica, Julie, all you guys who are here, this conversation, if this resonates at all with you, about religion, spirituality, what does that mean for us in business? Is there a connection? Should we keep it separate? I'd love to hear, Lori, you too, because you are another person, Lori, who's given me some really good things to think about. Yes, she did freeze, and I hope she didn't get struck by lightning, Polly. I'm hoping she'll come back. But so Lori has told me about books that are so cool. Lori, the last two books you told me about, I still remember. The Afterlife of Billy Fingers, and also Being You, Changing the World. Those were two books that were so important in my understanding of things. And Kelly, you and I've been in a lot of mastermind groups and study groups where we're learning a lot about different modalities and different leadership, communication, spirituality, I'm going to say, because it's not religion. I think there's a distinction. I'm wondering if I need to go find Beth, because I'm worried about her. It's kind of funny. You guys, will you come back if I just leave and come right back? I'm just going to go see if I can find her on Zoom, and then I'll be right back. Oh, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay, and I'm going to actually just text her and ask her if she's okay. So if you guys can chat in there, I see Joanne just joined us. Jody just joined us. Chat with me about this. And Kelly says, for me, being fully me, there is no way to separate, though maybe didn't language when. What does that mean, Kelly? Oh, are you back, Beth?
I'm back.
What happened? We lost you.
I know my lights flickered just long enough to knock my router out. So
oh my gosh, I was like, oh, I hope she didn't get struck by lightning.
So crazy. This never happens.
That's funny. Well, apparently it does, because it just
does. Apparently it does.
So I was asking about some books and things that I've studied with some of the people who are here, and Kelly is telling me about being fully me. There's no way to separate. And so Kelly and I have talked about a lot of spirituality. I was asking them when you were gone, is there a way to, is it important to separate spirituality and business, or is there a way to bring it together? What do you think about that?
For me, I have not ever been able to separate spirituality from anything. And actually, that was part of a crisis in part of my journey, because I had this life of service in the evangelical church. That was my mission. That was what I was called to. That's how I thought I was supposed to be fulfilled and live my life of love in the world. And then that stopped. Like, I walked away. There's a whole story around that, of course. But when I did, I totally lost my sense of, because I'd never separated this idea of mission and calling and vocation. And the thought of working in this secular world was like, oh, it was so far. And like, I did not know how to do it. I did not know how to, even though I knew I was talented and gifted, I knew I could do things, right? I'm a developer. I build things. Right. I knew I could do things to make money, but the thought of it was very awful, because it was like, wow, what a, I remember thinking, what a sad life that must be to just be all about building a business, or just to be all about earning a paycheck. Like, I had no clue. This is some of the beautiful things that came out of me walking away, was me realizing how the breadth, the depth of who God is and where he is and how God moves in the world and my part in that. Yeah, so the thing that couldn't allow me to separate eventually allowed me to really dig deep and come to peace with this idea that if I am who I am in the world, if I am created in the divine image and are to be loved in the world and to do, then it doesn't matter what I do, doesn't matter. All that then becomes my vocation.
Oh, that's good. So we've got a couple of comments here. Kelly resonates with you a lot. She said, "Amen, Beth." She said, "I don't know how to see the world without love." And Kelly says that she uses different language at work, though decisions will always come from a higher place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Polly says, "I've never been able to separate my core belief system from any part of my life. I have definitely curtailed my vocabulary to better suit my audience." What do you say to that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to. Oh my gosh. I mean, these are my struggles, right? Those are the struggles of what does it mean to be authentic and yet not be an ass, or to be, or not be, right? Is to be a discerning in the moment, and to be sometimes you hear people talk about being authentic or vulnerable, and that just means they get to go and say anything they want.
Interesting. Okay, so to you then, being authentic and vulnerable is being an ass?
No, it's not. It's, I said that people use that as an excuse to be who just to give over and say anything they want and act any way they want. And I think with, I mean, I don't know. It's a fine line, and I can't speak for anybody else.
Well, to me, it would be just the opposite, because to me, being authentic would be able to speak that truth in business. So to me, I hold back. I'm Polly, I'm just kind of reading into this where she says, "I've never been able to separate my core belief system, but I've definitely curtailed my vocabulary and to better suit the audience." I think when I be authentic, when I be real, I mean, we're talking about that in our Get Real group, I wouldn't have to think so much about where am I? Am I here? Am I here? How do I talk about this? Because if I'm being completely authentic, then I'm just being me without having to think so much. At least that's how I feel it.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I love that idea. I think, though, that we do continually interact with other people. And for me, I this all the time for me. So I do not have it figured out. I err constantly one way or the other, but I really, like, love is so important that I always am trying to think, where's that other person? Can they hear this? How are they going to perceive it? So that's not always good, right? Because we've talked before about voice being stifled, me letting other, my voice be subsumed. So it's a constant balance, but not everybody is ready to hear everything. And sometimes I think that some of that's wisdom, right?
Not every, go back a second. You said not everybody's ready to hear everything. Tell me more about that.
At any time. I mean, well, part of love feels like to me to try to understand, is this the appropriate time or place to say something without my voice being that's been the hard part for me, because I come from a space where for whatever reason, and I don't know why, honestly, because I can't ever remember anybody, and maybe a couple of times, but for the most part, it's not like people were saying, you can't talk, you can't say this. But I really walked in and embraced patriarchy and the whole everything. Like I'm a complicit in my own, abuse, as they say, that we become complicit.
Yeah. Ooh,
because yeah, so it took me a long time to weed that out and to say, what if that is not right? So I still struggle with that, but I still really cling to never wanting to be one that just feels like I get to say anything I want, no matter what's happening on the other side. Because that doesn't feel good either.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I really do get that. It's like, it's speaking a different language, and
yeah,
I struggle with speaking to people where they are, knowing where I want to go. And so a mastermind group I have been part of for 12 years, and Kelly, you might be able to help me with this. Dan used to say, you have to speak to people where they are. Because if you and I are having this conversation about higher awareness and spirituality and all this stuff, and people just don't have the language for that, it would be it wouldn't be kind to speak in a different language for them. And I'm looking. Chris Angel joined us. Chris Angel, this is the reason we're even in this group right now and having this conversation is because of Chris. So Chris is my coach, my marketing coach, who has encouraged me to get real with my marketing. So the message that Beth, we're talking about this, and we've been talking about this in private kind of, but we've never really come out and talked about spirituality and business in public. I want people to know that this is part of who I am. I am going to be a person who is going to speak about love over fear. And I'm going to be that kind of coach and that kind of person who works with businesses. I can't not be that anymore. And I'm working on the language, right? And I think you are too, Beth. I think
for sure.
I'm speaking for you, but
for sure. And I think what you're describing is what I have experienced is it's like a coat. We talked about this the other day. I was talking about an similar experience, and I was using the coat analogy. I think it's perfect. Something that doesn't quite fit anymore. You're trying to figure it. You're trying to make it all fit. And what kind of gymnastics am I going through to make this thing fit? And is it causing me not to be who my real self? And those are the things I'm trying to pay attention to and notice. My love for you should never subsume who I am. And if I choose to not say everything at all times, right? So it's a crazy, interesting thing. And you're like the third conversation this week about this.
really,
because my history coming out of the evangelical church was all about suppressing voice, power structures. And honestly, I was in a very more liberal environment than like the Baptists, but it's still inherent, right? And then you're also being told in the culture that it's not only do you not have a voice, to trust your heart and your head is unspiritual, and then everything gets a God label on it, and then so it's this heavy shit, man. It's heavy. It's a heavy burden to lay on people that not only can they not be who they are, but now God's saying you can't be.
Yeah.
It adds an additional level of, oh boy,
I'm messing up. Well, I mean, even if we take that to just business without putting the God heaviness on it, I mean, think about bosses who lead that way and they believe that the way they're supposed to lead is top down, and that heaviness that it feels like you're going to mess up and you're looking behind you all the time to see, oh, am I going to get in trouble for this? And maybe some of that comes from the way we've seen God as being this, I don't know, heavy-handed, fear-based kind of guy, I don't, and that whole patriarchal that you've been talking about. Well, no wonder if men are typically in that hierarchy, they don't know how to be loving. I think there are people who don't understand that they don't have to be heavy-handed. God is love. That's what it says. That's what we're taught. And yet God is punitive. Where does this come from?
Well, so it's interesting, this idea of leadership in those ways. So, I mean, I'm not 20. I've been doing this a long, long time. And when we were young in our adulthood and really starting to move out in leadership roles, and we would go to conferences and we'd read books, and we were in all the leadership meetings and all this stuff. And it was not, even at that time, I remember bristling at the advice we were given about how to be a leader, thinking that was so old, like who talks that way anymore? But they would say, and even, I don't know if they do now, but for a long time, even in seminary, it wasn't uncommon to be taught that leaders, you have to have a veil, right? You can't be this way. You have to maintain the illusion of whatever that is that separates you. You can't be real. So that was actually taught for a long, long, long time. So it may not be taught anymore. I don't know, because I'm not in those circles, but when it's taught, it's not just caught, it's actually taught. So
interesting. It's not just caught, it's taught. So I'm talking with Beth Alford, who's a great friend of mine in Texas, who kind of grew up in an evangelical church, was actually doing work for the church for a while, Beth, for quite a while, right?
Yep,
seeding churches?
almost 20 years. We were starting churches. We'd go in to a place. We would um, gather people. We'd set up teams. So I did a lot. That's where I learned how to develop, that I was a developer. I'd raise up, this ministry and that ministry and train somebody to take it over. And then we'd move off and do it. We did
Okay.
that several times. And then we stayed in one place for a while and pastored a church. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we were kind of talking about how whether or not our upbringing in a church or spirituality, I'm calling spirituality from the inside. For me, that comes from the inside, and religion comes from the outside. And that's just me.
Yeah.
Religion feels heavy to me because the way I was raised was God is going to punish you. And I think sometimes that whole God is going to punish you thing transfers into business in some ways, because we're not able to be ourselves at our businesses many times. I'm not sure it's still that way, Beth, but I don't know. Do you have experience with that? You run your own business, so you get to be.
I do. So I've had very little experience in the outside world. So
Okay.
I was in the church world for almost, even once we weren't pastoring, I took a job at a church as a communications, in a communication role and I was there for a number of years. And then I had the only job I've ever had outside of that, was not in a church. And that was, I think, 6 years or so. So that's really my only little experience of something where I got paid to do work that wasn't inside of that. And then I decided to start my own thing. And part of that was I went through a really, a divorce, and I was going to say a really bad divorce, but I don't think it wasn't any worse than any of them. I don't think. They're all terrible. But after that, I still hung out. I was still trying to make it work, and I was still trying to make it work. And I kept ignoring all the signs, and I kept ignoring it. And then I finally left and went to work for this other place. And it was really a great next step for me. And I learned a ton of stuff, but that nagging thing of I've got to be doing something that I can do out of my own values. That's what ended up finally driving me to start my own thing.
Interesting. So you guys, if you have any questions that you want to put in the chat, not that we're going to be the authority on any of this, but we'll be happy to include you. Polly says, my words are not as important as my walk. I've had coworkers and employers tell me I am so welcoming and loving. That opens up the opportunity for conversations as to why and how I am that way. So words are not as important as my walk. And I think that's probably true for everybody. Talk can be really cheap. It's not what you say, it's who you be, I think.
Yeah.
And Polly and I have actually talked about how sometimes you think you're coming across a certain way and people's experience of you is different from that. And so even though I think I'm being welcoming and open, if somebody's impression of me, if I touch something in somebody else that triggers one of their limiting beliefs, it could occur as if I'm causing them to feel bad about themselves. And that's not always the case. But again, talking to people where they are versus where you want them to go is a challenge.
So can I speak to that? Because
please.
That what she said is so true, right? We know that's true. I want to just flip that a little bit, because I also have had some opposite experiences. Again, we all have our own, where we've come from and our own little demons to punch through. I, for a long time, believed what was being said to me and what I took in of my culture, which said my voice didn't matter. So I was doing that. Well, maybe I'll just be that person. I'll be that person and it'll make change. Listen, there's a reason why all social justice movements, they don't just happen. People have to stand up and raise their voice. Sometimes you have to raise your voice. And I know she's talking about something else in terms of how to be with people, but I'm right now just really stuck on this whole thing of being, for me right now, where I am, using my voice is part of how I'm being me, because I felt like, which is kind of funny because I'm a high D, I'm an ENTJ, I'm bossy, that's who I am, right? So you'd think, well, I taught people who watch this, who've known me forever, like, well, you've never had any trouble saying what you think. But honestly, being really who I am, and there's fear often weighs down me being really being able to say what I really want to say. and thinking I could just be that right person and it would make change happen. So I can remember a lot of instances in the church where I'd see things and I just didn't understand why they were that way. And I just would hear, it just takes time. Change takes time. And I would just push those things down and push them down. And yeah, I can't do that anymore. Maybe it's a function of age too. It's like,
Could be. I think wisdom, there's something to be said for wisdom, and that can come with age. Paula says, I've been turned off by religious vocabulary from people whose walk doesn't line up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Kelly says, I've learned to let go of wanting anyone to go anywhere and love them where they are. And as I am, my full self, not diminishing. We will either connect or not.
Yeah.
And by the way, our friend David says, I love the authentic Beth.
Who is that?
David.
Oh, David.
We love David.
He's one that I can be myself with, and it's beautiful. I love that.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about this whole being real thing. The reason you're in this right now and you're even watching this is because I'm going to make an assumption that you're looking for a place where you can be real. You who are watching, you and me, Beth, us, Kelly, David, Kyle, Polly, we've got all these people watching. I can't even imagine the other way anymore, where I'm trying to decide what I'm supposed to be for this person and this person and this person, because I'm in this space now, thanks to Chris and the last 5 weeks, where I can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
It's like, I gotta be who I am, not to be nasty at all, but to maybe put some tough love into a situation I wouldn't have before. And for me, tough love on me, but also I want my tribe, my people, my circle to call me out on things or tell me or let me know what you see that I'm not seeing. And don't be afraid of that. And I think we don't have a lot of practice with that.
No, and it's interesting. I hate to keep referring back to it, but again, it was my journey. And when we started planning churches, our big core desire was community. It's like, we want to build something different. We want to build something new. We want to do something where people can be real and that it's not religious. And it's pretty much killed us.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we experienced a lot of great stuff and a lot of great community, but that whole thing of like real conversations and we just don't know how to do it. None of us know how to do it. And so when we have like an agenda to try, there's a lot of resistance.
An agenda to try.
Right. That's your agenda. Or my mission, your passion, we're going to try to like create this intentional community where we work things out. And I mean, this is so interesting because so I have a little agency. We're small. We've got under 10 people in our team, a lot of contractors, but anytime anybody new comes on, it's like, I sit down and I say, okay, here's the thing, there's the job and I want you to do the job and all this stuff. But really what I'm interested in is thinking the best of each other. Can you agree to these 5 or 6 things before they have to sign it, that they agree? And one of them is that they will agree to have tough conversations. That's how I'm going to speak to them. That's how I expect that they speak back to me. So I've done that for the last 5 years. And regardless of even doing that and setting people down day one, you still have bad because people don't know how to do it. You try to make it safe. People don't believe you. People think, I've heard that before, right? So it's a challenge, but I'm just determined to figure it out.
So what can happen? What's the worst thing that could happen if we have real conversations? I mean, I am ready to do that, you guys. You who are here, I'm ready to do that, and I'm gonna mess it up. There's gonna be a point at which I'm gonna mess it up, and what's the worst thing that can happen? You will disapprove of me for being real.
Yeah, it's exposure. I mean, we're all afraid for that thing that Brene Brown talks about, I think. Don't you?
Well, yeah, but I'd rather have somebody reject me for being who I am than accept me for being something I'm not, because then I have to have such a good memory. If I'm faking I've done that my whole life. I've faked my whole life because I thought if I do this and I say this and I wear this and I read this, then you'll like me. Then you'll appreciate.
Let me ask you something about that, because I've been thinking about this recently. Do you think you were faking, or were you trying to be? Did you have an ideal in your head? Like, do you feel like you were trying to contort to what somebody was telling you? Or do you feel like you were really trying to live up to an ideal that you really wanted to be in your life?
That's a good question. I don't think I thought it through that much. I think it was more reactive than proactive. So in relationships, I younger, very much younger, I'd be like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and I'd just be me because I didn't know how else to be. And then that being me was bullied and was shut down. And
Yep.
third, fourth, fifth grade, I thought, well, okay, apparently me is not good. So I got to figure out how to not be me. And so the way that I could get acceptance or not even appreciation that young, but not be bullied, let's just say, not be bullied, was to fit in the box.
Yeah, you just learn. Have you read what you just said? Reminded me. Have you read Glennon Doyle's new book, Untamed? She
Untamed,
talks
yeah,
about
just
that right in the beginning. She talks about
so
that
good,
experience of her. So
so
yeah,
good, so good. And what I love about those kinds of books and those kinds of things that we can share, it's so amazing to know I'm not the only person that's
I
felt that.
know.
Oh, and I don't know, that's another connection. That's the connection I'm looking for, is a connection to have conversations like this, Beth, with people who we can agree or disagree, but we don't ever have to be disagreeable, even if we disagree about something.
So one of the reasons I asked you that question is because I've struggled with that myself. Because for years I really wanted to be this type of person, like,
Mm. You
again,
knew what it
remember, it's
was.
cloaked in that language of God, and I thought I was supposed to be a certain thing because that's what God was wanting me to be, and I wanted to be that, and so that's what I was trying to be.
Mm.
So like this false self, right? We all have a false self until we figure it out and try to
Yeah.
break out of it. But like I had constructed it like
Mm.
armor because that's what I thought I wanted to be. Like that was even so deceptive. I didn't think I was doing it for others, where at the core that's what it is, because we want to be liked and loved, and I thought that was the path. But I'd set that up in my own heart is what I wanted to be, and that's why it took a severe crisis for me to come out of the church. Like I wouldn't have just walked away. It took a really severe situation where I had to say I can't go back. And so it made me look, and it made me tear down that false self, because it is it's it's just it's just strong. It just
Mm.
holds on. And it's wily. It's like in all kinds of places you don't know it's there.
Well, it's like it's the ego. If you
Yeah,
use
there
the
you go.
terminology
Yep.
from Eckhart Tolle, he talks about the ego. You have an ego, but you're not your ego. And yeah, Carrie's coming on here saying, I think you try to be what others are trying to teach you to be.
Yeah.
And you're taught from a young age how you're supposed to be. And I don't really think people are maliciously doing this. I
No.
think they're doing what they've been taught. And so, well, Carrie, we had this conversation earlier today. Carrie was on my driveway today. So Carrie was one of the people who had the red chair dialogue on the actual driveway today. And so for those of you who tuned in late, we're recreating the red chair dialogue on the driveway virtually, and Beth is the first red chair dialogue. And the only reason I'm calling it red chair dialogue is because I happen to have a red folding chair, and that was what we used. So anyway, to catch everybody up. So if you're taught from a young age by somebody who well-meaning, right? My mom would say, Jody, I don't want you to go to hell. I need you to believe this, because if you don't, you are going to hell and you're going to burn forever. And I'm like, wow, I'm 3, Mom. I mean, that's what you learn. And that God is going to send you to hell if you don't say this word the way it is, or if you don't. And I'm like, whoa, this is not a God that I
Yeah.
would have thought it would be. And so I've had to undo a lot of stuff to get to the place where like I said earlier, I put God in a tiny little box. And
Did you think of that? Did you think that way at 3 or 4,
yes,
5? You said that
yes,
God
I
that
did.
way. Wow, that's
I did. I had thoughts of kids in Africa. No, China. I think I thought of China because when I learned that the world was a globe and that people would tell you that here's America and here's China, and I used to think, how are they not falling off?
right.
And I thought about all kinds of things like that. And I thought, well, now I heard that there's this thing called pygmies in like other parts of the world that don't know about Jesus. And if we're going to hell if we don't believe in Jesus. And then my mom would say, well, then you better go save them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I have to save the pygmies. And it was so heavy for a 3, 4, 5-year-old.
So that's just so interesting because I probably had a similar experience, except for some reason I internalized it and I said, I'm going to go save them.
Wow. Isn't it funny though,
Yeah.
what we become because of our
Yeah.
condition?
But that's why it's taken me so stinking long to figure out what is my own truth.
Yeah.
and what is somebody else telling me.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. You guys, are you connecting with any of this? People who are watching, we got, quite a few people watching. Any questions you have or any comments or anything you want to add here? I didn't even know where this was going to go, Beth. This is so fun because this is the real deal dialogue, right? This is what happens when you
I
get to,
have a question for you.
yeah.
So you've created a group, Get Real, and I hear where it came from, and obviously there's a lot of interest in getting real.
Right.
The
Yeah.
group is. I'm curious though, like when you say you're longing for that,
Mhm.
what are you hoping to have happen here? So I mean, because on one level, it's so great. Like we're gonna meet new people, we're gonna hopefully have some great dialogue, but it isn't a little bit of a bubble, right? We're in this group.
Mhm.
Are you kind of hoping that we'll learn skills or tools to take out, or
I would hope that, I suppose if I really visualized it and gave you all my vision of it, the challenge I have with that, and right now I'm in this space of people asking me, what is it, Jody? What should we do? What do you want it to be? And I hesitate to say that because I'm much more interested in what we can create together. Sure, to take out to the world. I will do what I will do with it. But lately, I've been triggered is a pretty strong way to say it, but I've been impacted by people who are reaching out to me and saying, so when you said this, what did you mean? And how should I do it? And what is the step? What are the steps? And I'm
yeah.
like, people, I'm not in charge of your experience. Figure it out. Do it yourself. Mess it up. Get out there, because the way we can learn, I think, best from each other is a conversation like this, where I'm not the guru. I'm not in charge of this. I don't know. You said the same thing, Beth. You said I'm still working and I'm unpacking it myself. But if you know there's a place you can bounce back in, be real, let your hair down, figure stuff out, then you can go back into your life where not everybody's ready to have this conversation. At least you've learned something and you've had a space to work on it. I think that's what I hope it becomes for people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter if it makes sense. I'm not even going to ask you for your permission. I don't know.
Because I think one of the things I said when we were talking early, when you just started it, was I'm so interested in this and in meeting other people, because I feel like, honestly, since I was about 21, 22 years old, have I been looking for a relationship. And I've had many that were wonderful. So it's not like I have never had them, but consistently at a level, consistently able to be this. And and it feels like, I'm going to say out there in the real world, because it is a little bit of a bubble. It's a beautiful bubble, but out in the world, there's just a lot of resistance to reality and naming elephants in the room. And so it feels like sometimes you get bruised and battered trying to be that in the world. Right. And
well, and that's interesting. Maybe I take my bubble with me. I don't know. Maybe because I don't have that experience as much as I used to. I think I'm building up I'm how would I say this? We talked about this today, Carrie, too, on the driveway. One of the people who was there said, Jody, when you do Facebook Lives, you look so polished. And when you do, you talk about this and you do this, I think people are intimidated by you because you're so, I don't remember how she said it. And I thought, okay, I've been working on this for 17 years.
Yeah.
Since 2003, I have been on a personal development journey, and I've messed up more times than I've succeeded. And that mess up creates the opportunity for me to be more real. And so I think around me, I'm attracting more people, Beth, maybe that are in this space of at least allowing grace, the grace space.
Yeah.
Because it's what I'm doing. And so I don't know. I wonder if as we develop some more skills in this area, we take them with us, and then we come back. We're not
that's my big hope, I think, because I feel like I want it so bad. I remember when I first read that, the First Conversations was the first thing I read that it was saying, it was using language I had always thought, but I never actually experienced it. So it was like, oh, this is so radical.
Yeah.
And then you try to be that, and it's so difficult. I feel like I mean, you can't, I guess I wanted so much for everybody to experience what I think is freedom, right? In that, like, there's freedom in having a relationship, whether it's business or personal, where you
Mm.
can say what's true.
Oh,
Say
that's such a, okay.
yourself.
Yes, there's freedom in that relationship where you can say what's true. So here's what I understand about that. The freedom that everybody seems to want, we want the freedom to express ourselves, all that also comes with accountability,
Mhm.
right? Accountability to work on it and accountability to be real, I guess, and to be authentic and mess it up. People want the freedom, but they don't want the accountability, it
Mm.
seems.
Yeah.
And part of this, you guys, there's going to be an accountability to it. And I will have high expectations for us, all of us, me included, because you can't expect things to change out there, out of our bubble, let's just say, if we do everything the same way we've always done it outside the bubble.
Mhm.
And so when we come back and then we end up bringing back the residue from the other people, and we bitch and moan and complain and do that, we don't do that here. There's no space to bitch here. I mean, you can vent, you can say, this is pissing me off and it's making me mad, and then we're going to say, okay, and what are you going to do about it? That's the accountability piece. So if that doesn't resonate with us in this, then maybe we're not in the right place. But
Mhm.
I'm so encouraged because, like Jody says here, I still don't know who I am. This gives me hope that I'll figure it out. Well, of course you will, Jody. You're figuring it out. You're here. Polly says, I'm 52 and still trying. And I wrote back to Polly and said, Polly, as soon as you do, you're no longer trying, you're doing. So standing on the edge and going, man, wouldn't it be nice if I could have a conversation like Jody and Beth are having? Wouldn't it be nice if well, do it then. I mean, just do it, you guys. Mess it up. And I know I've 17 years of doing this. I get it. Yet, what better place to do it than here, where we have all kinds of grace for you and all kinds of arms that are going to catch you when you leap. Because if you don't leap, you'll never know.
So, um, out there in a place when you encounter, because you, as you said, you kind of take this with you a little bit more, maybe because you've been doing it a little longer. um I mean, do you hit places anymore where you get just kind of tired of that? Like, it's kind of grievous to me. Like, I get it, sometimes something will come up and I'll be in a place and I'll want so much to figure it out and work it out and wrestle. Like to wrestle it out with people, because that's what it takes, right? It's a wrestling. It's a but so many people won't engage
Well,
at that level. And I'm wondering, do you not find that anymore,
well,
or?
here's what I would say, and Kelly, I don't know if you're still here, but Kelly's one of my sparring partners, if you will, in that analogy, where we once in a while we'll have to go away from each other because we call each other to higher standards, and once in a while we just have to take a break because we get triggered or something happens. But I think what I'm learning, and Marianne just joined us. Marianne's a former client of mine, and she would know from working with me a long time ago. Have I shifted? Can you tell a difference in me? Can you see that I am more, more honest? Maybe there's an honesty and a truthfulness, right? So if I say something like, "I don't understand that," can you help me understand that a little bit more? And I feel like there's more of a kindness than an edge. Where before, when I was so worried about me and what people are going to think of me and all this kind of stuff, I think I occurred more fearful or more in fear, right? And now Rhoda just joined us. Rhoda knows me too. And I think they will tell you, Beth, that yeah, when I think back, Jody, you used to be really difficult because I was in a space of not knowing, not trusting. I was like a caged animal, and I would, I didn't know better. Now I really do believe in some of the trials I've had in the last week, week and 2 weeks, I've come through it because I can be fierce. And to use your book that you're talking about, Fierce Conversations, fierce doesn't mean mean, it means
Right.
robust. And it
Yep.
means standing in the mess. And to use Brene Brown's term, it's the being in the rumble,
Mhm.
being in the rumble.
I guess what I'm wondering, though, is that a conversation means two people, right? You don't have a conversation by yourself. And I'm trying to figure out how to, as much as I can, when I encounter people where, whether it's business or personal, where we need to have some conversation and they choose to not engage,
Mm-hmm.
how do I be in those moments, where it grieves me. Like, I mean, I get sad. Like, why does it have to be like this? But it also, I probably do other things I shouldn't do. I don't know.
Well, so I would ask you, Beth, do you have an agenda? Like, are you attached to an outcome?
Probably.
So just noticing that you're attached to the outcome means that they have to do a certain thing and be a certain way. And if they're not, then you'll be disappointed.
Well, to me, it's almost always around engagement,
Okay.
which is the outcome to me. So there might be other outcomes I would like to get to, but I'm so hyper interested in engagement.
Hmm.
Will you engage with me in this? Will you, can we take this to a little bit, right? So we either hit an impasse, a disagreement, or see things differently, or there's an elephant in the room. It's like, can we engage? To me, that's my desire and expectation.
Mhm. Desire and expectation, I think, are two different things. My
It is
desire,
it is my desire, and it is my expectation, and maybe I've got to work on that, but I expect that in grown ass relationships we can begin to be that for each other.
so I think if the expectation then, to use that terminology, is clear up front, and in this get real space, you guys, this is what it's all about. This is what you joined, whether you trusted me in it or not, um, or had another reason for doing it. I think we're holding each other to a higher standard. And I think that expectation maybe is already in place. So Beth, maybe we can practice it here and then we figure out
Yeah.
how we can use it out there. Denise says, do folks know how to converse back and forth anymore?
I mean,
And
that's,
she also says engage with peace.
yeah. Mm.
Ooh, Denise, can you write more about that? Engage with peace. Does that mean engaged with somebody with peace or to engage with peace? I'm wondering how you mean that. Because I wonder, Beth, do you think there's a way to engage without attachment?
I want attachment.
Do you want connection?
I want connection. See, I'm not, this is what's so weird about me. I know I'm not afraid of what it takes to get there. Like that, this engagement causes sometimes uncomfort. It causes discomfort, right? And we're afraid of
Mm,
discomfort. And I know the truth is we have to figure out how to work through the discomfort to get to the place of connection.
okay.
And so I just desire it so much, but I just fall short so many times in that. So many people just will not engage, and I think that was an interesting comment she just made about conversation anymore. And in the world we live in, it's so true, and I wonder how much of that just even makes us even more so if we don't,
Mm,
if we're not invested, let's just walk away, let's make it easy, let's not do the hard thing, because it you don't know where it's going to turn these days. Right.
yeah, you're right. I get what I hear you saying is you want connection and engagement, and I would just challenge you on the attachment piece because the way I have been learning about attachment is it has to look a certain way according to me.
Mm.
And there's a commitment to something that can happen down the road, but
How do you define attachment
so
differently?
here's an analogy. If I'm driving from Fargo to Austin, I have a goal in mind to get to Austin, and I would take I-29 south, and I would just be going, and I have that, I'm pretty sure of that. And I'm attached to getting to Austin on I-29. That's how I'm going to do it. And darn it, that's the way I'm going to do it. And I'm attached if I have it in my mind. Well, there's road construction. Let's say I can't. And I'm like, no, no, I need to go I-29. That's attachment.
I see.
Commitment says, oh, I'm more committed to the outcome than I am to how I get there. And in that commitment, I can say, okay, let me rethink this. Am I attached out of my own fear and my own need to be right? And I think that sometimes to me is a distinction that I'm working on.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know that I I can be pretty judgy in those moments when people won't engage me.
Mm.
I think because I'm just so tired of it. It's like, can we just get it? Can we just figure this
Right.
out?
Yes.
So I can totally sit in judgment.
Well, and again, it's just an observation, right? It's just a noticing. And if you're calling yourself in judgment, I would never say that about you. But if we know that about ourselves, then we can go, oh yeah, that's attachment, and I'm being judgmental or whatever. I'm going to choose differently.
Yeah.
So Denise says to talk with folks back and forth in at least a semi-peaceful way. I'm so with you on this. I've wanted to write a book on it because I so seldom talk with folks who can, question mark, go further.
Yeah.
So just a follow-up question, Beth, show you care, and how do you do this online too? Ooh, that's good. How do you do this online? Denise, you're somewhere like in, I don't know where you are. You're like in, I don't know, Indonesia or something right now. Is that where you are? Because she has to do a lot of her work online. And so how do you engage? Beth, I feel engaged with you. I feel connected with you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
was thinking when she was talking, I was thinking the broader culture and how and the
Mm,
toxic nature of what's happening right now.
mm,
And
mm,
it's so grief, like it's grief is the only word I can use to describe some of these things, because it's like you do get so discouraged when people don't seem to be able to just have, so civility has gone out the window.
mm, mm. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we saw each other in October,
Mhm.
but we don't live anywhere near each other.
Wow.
So
No, and I think that's a connection to me. It wouldn't be an attachment, it would be a connection with you. And we can pick up right where we left off.
right.
We haven't even really ever been in person much. I mean, a
Oh,
few times,
very little.
but yeah, you can do it online.
Yeah.
Denise, to that point. Carrie says I have to force myself to engage.
Uh,
So Carrie,
oh, yeah. I want to hear more about that.
Carrie, are you an introvert? I'd like to know more about you. So, I mean, I know a lot about you, but find out, add to that. We've got a lot of comments here coming, Beth.
Cool.
So Dawn says, I've recently been told that I deflect when it comes to connection, something I'm trying to understand. I think people seldom seek that deeper connection. I am not even aware I may be deflecting or avoiding that connection.
Mhm.
And I know, Dawn.
And I love hearing that, because that's why I said that about myself, about being judgmental. Is I going back to the very first thing we talked about, which is love. Like hearing this from these wonderful people who want it, but they don't even realize, none of us, we often don't realize what we're putting up, the barriers we're putting up. So when that happens and comes to me, I really do want to see that person in a different way, and not just as someone who won't engage me. Try to
Mm,
understand why maybe they're not engaging. We all have our own blocks, right?
mm. Do you want to fix them?
Fix them.
Fix them. You want to fix that person? I mean, is there any kind of that energy in you?
There likely is. I'm not thinking of a specific instance.
Because I think sometimes, oh, if they would only, and I'm saying this is me, not you, if they would only wake up, and if they would only see how great it could be, and I think maybe there's this. I know I'm in love with potential.
Sure, right.
I've been in love with potential my whole life
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
expense of reality, and I think I hold that possibility for people way beyond when they want to keep engaging with me,
yeah,
because at some point, a lot of me goes a long way. I mean, a little of me goes a long way, I think.
yeah.
Because I'm a lot. I get it. Polly says plans are in sand. The goal is in stone.
Mm.
All right. Denise, what about the 60s word of dialogue? So Denise, if you notice, this is called the red chair dialogue, because I don't know if that's a 60s word. You'd have to tell me more about that. But I use the word dialogue really, really on purpose. And
Yeah.
to me, dialogue is suspending previous assumptions in order to learn from each other. And I want to be really clear about that anytime I am having a conversation with somebody, because it means I have to suspend my previous assumptions too. And that's where the attachment piece, Beth, we might have to just become aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want something that they don't want, that could be a challenge. Melissa says hi. Melissa Thiel, hi to us. So Denise is in Malaysia. It's 9:24
Oh
a.m.
my goodness.
Oh my goodness, that's so
Is it
cool.
tomorrow?
Is it tomorrow, Denise, or is it yesterday? It's what is it? Thursday for you? Must be 9:24. Thursday. No, wait. Malaysia. Maybe it's yesterday. I don't know. Carrie, Carrie's an intro. Wait, I'm intro at home, extro at work. Oh, Carrie's an introvert at home, extrovert at work.
Interesting.
Okay. Denise says, when I worked in youth development, we asked teachers what we could do to help the youth grow and develop. And they said, please help the youth learn to talk to adults. Think about us at our ages. Do our young adults know how to do that back and forth? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Let me just back up. I don't have kids, so I have no experience in this, but I am engaging with some 20s somethings men, 20 in their 20s men. And I have this mastermind group of, I guess maybe they're a little bit older than that, some of them, but there are people right now that really do want to engage at this level. I'm so encouraged, Denise. So it's so fun. And they are, if you go back and listen to some of my podcasts, I'm interviewing people just because I find them fascinating. And they're in their 20s and they have so much wisdom at 20 in their 20s. So don't buy into that whole thing that millennials are whatever they are. They're just so amazing in my experience. So Denise says it's Thursday. So it's Thursday where she is.
She's ahead.
So cool. Well, Beth, we could talk forever. I know. Denise says, love it. Cindy just joined us and we're about ready to wrap up. Unless, do you have anything else you want to add or ask? Want to know anything more, Beth, about?
I don't know. I'm so curious, and maybe I should get in there on the group and ask, are you envisioning us all, it sounds like you're trying to hold this lightly and let it become what it needs to become. Are you would you like us to take initiative to post and to talk to people? And
I think if you look at some of the organic conversation that's happening there, somebody will post something like, I struggle with anxiety and depression, and somebody else will say, me too. And then they'll say, and then it keeps going. I love that part of it, because the last thing I want is to be the police over how this works. Now, this thing we're doing right now, the Red Chair Dialogue, we might throw these kinds of things out there. And maybe I need to set some standards and say, this is what it means to be in the Get Real space. I'd love your help on this, you who have joined us, the people who are here. I really hope that it organically grows without having to have a lot of direction. But REAL is an acronym for Radical, Energized, Authentic, and Learning Based. And so if you really resonate with those, we'll talk a little bit sometime about what the R means, radical. I had a drop in on Thursday of last week where it was just an opportunity for people to drop in and learn more about the REAL acronym. And radical does not mean wild, crazy out there. It means getting back to the root, radical, like a radish root. And so it means getting back to what I tell myself. What does my little voice in my head tell me? If I can really get into that, dig in and figure out how I can be better at my own intra-personal communication first, then I have a much better opportunity to be better on the outside, to use your analogy.
You know, something was, you were just talking about that authentic, in this discussion of the false self and the ego and all that. If you'd have asked me when I was 25 or 35 or 45, I would have told you I was being my authentic self. Like I thought I wanted to be, and I thought I was. So it makes me so curious. Like I'm so interested to see what I'm gonna feel like when I turn back, you know, in the next 10 years and see what's this like.
Right.
Because I think it's just a lifetime journey of getting to
it is. Kelly was here. She talks about joy being her favorite word, JOY, and she calls it the journey of you. And in that journey of you, I mean, wow, yeah, I suppose if we're not growing, we're dying. So there's a point at which, you know, we're going to go the other way. We're going to be done. It's a finite journey we're on, but why not make it as great as it can be, as long as it can be that great?
It's that, though, that little piece of nugget that I really, when I can remember that also keeps me out of judgment. When I realize we're all there, we're all going there, and you know.
Well, we're here for each other, and I love that you guys popped in just to see what we could develop and create and allow in our Red Chair Dialogue. And you never know who might be in the red chair next time. and feel free to create whatever. I anticipate, I don't even know what this means, but I anticipate having watch parties. I understand you can tell everybody to watch the same thing at the same time and then have a conversation about it as it's going. So there's some movies I love. In fact, I'll put something out there and ask what your favorite inspirational movies are. And maybe we'll do that. Or we'll have Rhoda. Rhoda, are you still here? If Rhoda's still here, Rhoda's going to pop in and do something like this, Beth, and she's going to sing. She's a singer songwriter, and she's going to give us a little mini concert. So watch for that coming too. There are so many amazing people who are here who I'd love you all to know each other, because I feel almost guilty for knowing all you cool people.
Yeah.
And I'd love you to know each other. So Rhoda says we talk in small Midwestern rural communities. The art of visiting is that art of visiting.
Love that. Visiting.
So we've done a lot of visiting. Oh, there's Rhoda. Rhoda, Am I? She says, I am I? Yes, you are. You are going to be singing, Rhoda, at some point. We're doing this. And Denise says guidance will be welcome on getting her to that place of engaging young people in conversation. So Beth, I love you so much.
Beth, I love you. Thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
Absolutely. Fun. And we will do this again, you guys. So just keep watching what's happening in the Get Real and invite your friends. I had a conversation today on the driveway where they asked me, what do you want to do in the next week? And I said, I want to get this group to 1,000 people, because that means that we've actually impacted 1,000 people who have an opportunity to connect. And just think about what happens out there when in here we expand the opportunity. So if you have friends or relatives or anybody you think might be interested, let them know. They're welcome in Get Real.
Sounds good. Awesome. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see you. I am so happy that we did this. Take care. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Now I got to figure out how to get out of it. We might be here forever.